The December afternoon in 1940 was cold and grey when Colonel Walter Warlimont stood before the assembled German General Staff at Wehrmacht High Command headquarters in Zossen. As Deputy Chief of Operations, he carried intelligence assessments that would shape strategic planning for years to come. The report in his hands painted a picture of American industrial capacity that the German military leadership found deeply reassuring. The intelligence painted American factories in stark terms. These plants, the analysis insisted, had been built to churn out consumer goods, automobiles, appliances, household items. The workers staffing them had never experienced military production. Most troubling to German planners was the American contingency proposal to recruit women into factories. This wasn't seen as innovative thinking, but as a sign of desperate weakness. American intelligence reports showed the United States producing approximately 300 aircraft each month, fewer than 20 tanks, and virtually no military vehicles worth counting. The picture grew bleaker when German analysts examined military strength. The United States Army ranked 17th in global size, smaller than Romania's fighting force. For German planners preparing for extended warfare, these facts provided comfort. They couldn't have been more wrong. Across the Atlantic, separated by 4,500 miles of ocean, something revolutionary was already stirring. American women would soon build more weaponry every month than Germany could produce in 3 months. The very factories dismissed as consumer goods plants would orchestrate history's greatest industrial transformation. Within 2 years, German intelligence officers would watch American production numbers with mounting dread as each report shattered previous assumptions. The Nazi leadership never grasped what was truly unfolding. It wasn't a single battlefield defeat that would doom their regime. It was the mobilization of millions of American women pouring into factories, transforming the arsenal of democracy into something the German mind could scarcely comprehend. German military planning in 1940 rested upon intelligence that was factually accurate at that moment. Wehrmacht analysts had gathered real data about American capacity. Aircraft production averaged 300 units monthly. Tank production remained experimental and minimal. Military vehicle construction barely existed. The American Army fielded 269,000 soldiers, equipped by standards that would have embarrassed any European power. These numbers were correct representations of American military capacity in December 1940. Documents preserved in the Bundesarchiv reveal the methodical German analysis. Wehrmacht economists calculated that converting American consumer factories to military production would require between 3 and 5 years based on their own experience. They observed that American factories ran single 8-hour shifts. Workers demanded time off on weekends. Labor unions protected workers and resisted management decisions about production changes. American plans to recruit women for factory positions were interpreted as admission of failure rather than strategic brilliance. The German General Staff drew their conclusions from European precedent. German rearmament, which had begun secretly in 1933, consumed 6 years before achieving meaningful military production. France's desperate industrial mobilization between 1939 and 1940 had collapsed into failure. Britain, despite fighting for 18 months, still couldn't produce weapons in quantities that threatened German superiority. These examples seem to confirm German assumptions about industrial transformation timelines, but German analysts were measuring American potential through European limitations. They couldn't imagine an industrial system that could train millions of workers in mere weeks. They couldn't conceive of factories rising from empty fields in months. They certainly couldn't fathom that patriotic motivation alone would drive American workers to accomplish what seemed impossible by German standards. Most fatally, they couldn't imagine that American women without any industrial experience would master precision manufacturing faster than trained German craftsmen with decades of experience. The transformation began in May 1940. France was collapsing. Britain stood alone against Hitler's armies. American industrial leaders understood they couldn't remain neutral much longer. President Roosevelt's declaration that America would produce 50,000 aircraft annually triggered revolutionary changes throughout American manufacturing. William Knudsen, president of General Motors, accepted the position of director of the Office of Production Management. His actions upended American industrial culture completely. Competitors who had guarded their advantages jealously agreed to share trade secrets, production techniques, and specialized equipment. Ford, Chrysler, Packard, and Studebaker opened their doors to each other's engineers and managers. In Germany, industrial titans guarded their advantages like medieval lords defending castles. Such cooperation was unthinkable in Nazi business culture. But American automotive executives grasped something fundamental. The threat they faced transcended corporate competition. They began standardizing parts across companies. They shared equipment. They cross-trained workers so production could continue if key facilities suffered damage. Henry Ford, initially reluctant to build aircraft engines, changed his mind completely. His company would learn what it didn't know. This wasn't weakness. This was adaptation. Meanwhile, something extraordinary was happening across American society. Something no government mandate prompted. Women began enrolling in welding courses on their own initiative. They signed up for blueprint reading classes without being recruited. They attended precision measurement training because they understood what was coming. By September 1940, thousands prepared for industrial work before government programs even existed. Training schools nationwide reported female enrollment they'd never anticipated. The Bullard Havens Technical School in Connecticut had never admitted women until suddenly hundreds of applications arrived. Similar patterns emerged in cities and towns across the country. Women sensed the nation's coming transformation and positioned themselves to answer the call before it formally arrived. Everything changed on December 7, 1941. The Japanese attack unlocked industrial mobilization that exceeded every projection. Within 48 hours, employment offices nationwide were inundated with volunteers, predominantly women. The transformation at Boeing in Seattle demonstrates how rapidly industry adapted. On December 6, 1941, Boeing employed approximately 8,000 workers, most of them men. By January 1, 1942, employment had doubled, with women comprising the majority of new hires. By June 1943, Boeing would employ 45,000 workers, with women performing the majority of assembly operations. German intelligence received reports of announced American production targets. The United States claimed plans for 60,000 aircraft in 1942 and 125,000 in 1943. German analysts, whose nation produced 12,000 aircraft annually, dismissed these as propaganda. Surely no nation could achieve such impossible numbers. What German planners failed to comprehend was the revolution in American manufacturing engineering. Frederick Taylor's principles of scientific management, refined by Charles Sorensen at Ford, transformed complex manufacturing into simple, repeatable tasks. Rather than training a worker to build an entire component, American factories trained them for specific operations. One woman might learn to drill 6 precise holes. Another specialized in installing specific rivets. A third focused on attaching particular cables. Working in coordinated sequence, hundreds performing their specific tasks could complete dozens of aircraft daily. By March 1942, American factories were achieving production rates that startled German intelligence analysts. The Willow Run plant hadn't existed a year earlier. Now it was rising on 35 million square feet of former Michigan farmland. Designed to employ 42,000 workers, building B-24 bombers, it would become the world's largest factory under a single roof. German intelligence assessments from spring 1942 show repeated rejection of American production claims. Their experts calculated that producing a 4-engine bomber required a minimum of 4,000 skilled man-hours. American claims of eventually producing one aircraft every 63 minutes were dismissed as mathematically impossible. At Willow Run, revolutionary production methods were proving calculations wrong. The factory operated as a colossal assembly line, with bombers moving through 1,600 workstations. Women performed most operations. They drilled holes. They installed rivets. They wielded torches fusing metal. They ran electrical systems through each aircraft. Using pneumatic tools unavailable in German factories, they completed assemblies in minutes that required hours using traditional methods. Rose Wilman Ruff, working at Willow Run, became one of several women who inspired the Rosie the Riveter image. Operating pneumatic riveters, she and her teammates completed fuselage sections in 45 minutes that required 8 hours for German workers using hand riveting. By April 1944, Willow Run was completing one B-24 every 63 minutes during peak production periods. The plant ultimately produced 8,685 B-24 bombers. American women's role in war production directly contradicted Nazi ideology. German doctrine declared women belonged exclusively in domestic roles. The concept of women building weapons wasn't merely considered impractical, it represented racial degeneracy in Nazi thinking. Yet by mid-1942, American women were demonstrating extraordinary capabilities that shattered these assumptions. At the Douglas Aircraft Plant in Long Beach, California, women comprised 40% of the workforce by 1943, achieving production efficiency that exceeded pre-war male workers through systematic training and engineering improvements. At Richmond shipyards in California, 90,000 workers operated at peak production, with women comprising 27% of the workforce and 41% of welders. These workers produced Liberty ships in average times of 45 days, with the SS Robert E. Peary completed in 4 days, 15 hours and 29 minutes in November 1942. German shipyards required 300 days for similar vessels. Women excelled in precision operations previously considered impossible for female workers. At the Spirogroscope Company, women assembled bomb sights requiring tolerances of 10,000ths of an inch. Their steady hands and attention to detail exceeded standards achieved by experienced male craftsmen. By August 1942, American production reached levels that made German defeat mathematically certain. Aircraft production approached 4,000 monthly, equaling Germany's quarterly output every single month. The United States produced more military trucks weekly than Germany managed monthly. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey documented production disparities comprehensively. In 1942, America produced 47,836 aircraft compared to Germany's 15,409. By 1944, American production reached 96,318 aircraft, while Germany managed 4,593, despite efficiency improvements and desperation efforts. Tank production revealed similar disparities. The Detroit Arsenal achieved production approaching 900 Sherman tanks monthly by December 1942. German tank production for all models averaged 500 monthly in 1942. America could replace losses faster than Germany could inflict them. Material superiority became overwhelming and irreversible. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel experienced American material superiority firsthand in North Africa. His communications to Berlin throughout 1942 reported facing overwhelming material advantages. For every tank destroyed, multiple replacements appeared. American supplies seemed unlimited, while German forces operated under strictly rationed resources. Boeing's B-17 Flying Fortress production exemplified American industrial might. Boeing's Seattle plant employed 45,000 workers by mid-1943, with significant female workforce participation after major recruitment drives began in June 1943. They achieved production of 16 B-17s daily. Combined production from Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed delivered bombers faster than crews could be trained. By early 1943, American bomber formations grew larger monthly despite German interceptor successes. The Luftwaffe confronted not finite aircraft numbers, but unlimited production capacity. German fighter pilots reported the futility of their efforts against an enemy that never ran out of bombers. Adolf Galland, commanding German fighter forces, later acknowledged that by 1943, the air war was mathematically lost. American production had made victory impossible, regardless of tactical success. Liberty ship construction demonstrated American production capability most dramatically. The Maritime Commission promised to build ships faster than U-boats could sink them, a claim that seemed absurd given U-boat efficiency. Admiral Karl Dönitz calculated that Americans needed to build 200 ships annually to replace losses, exceeding what he considered global manufacturing capacity. But American shipyards would launch 2,751 Liberty ships during the war using revolutionary methods. The Kaiser shipyards revolutionized shipbuilding through prefabrication and assembly line techniques. Ships were constructed in sections, then assembled rapidly. Women welders replaced traditional riveters, reducing construction times substantially. Components were mass-produced, then assembled at unprecedented speed. By May 1943, American shipyards launched 3 Liberty ships daily, while U-boats averaged sinking 1 every 3 days. Admiral Dönitz withdrew submarines from the Atlantic, conceding that American production had defeated the U-boat campaign. The Douglas aircraft plant in Santa Monica employed 44,000 workers across 3 shifts by 1943, producing 360 C-47 transport aircraft monthly, exceeding Germany's entire transport fleet. Women performed not just assembly, but suggested workflow improvements that increased efficiency. American aircraft production achieved mass production with precision exceeding handcrafted standards. Every component underwent rigorous testing and inspection. Rejection rates remained lower than German facilities, despite vastly higher production speeds. The Lockheed plant demonstrated that advanced aircraft could be mass-produced. The P-38 Lightning, among the era's most complex fighters, was assembled primarily by recently trained women workers who built sophisticated aircraft matching German quality. The Detroit Arsenal began production in 1941 on 113 acres in Warren, Michigan. By late 1942, it approached 900 M4 Sherman tanks monthly, exceeding Germany's entire tank production. Women operated massive presses forming armor plates. They worked precision lathes machining components. They controlled overhead cranes moving 30-ton turrets. They mastered welding torches, joining armor sections, and quality control, ensuring every tank would function in combat. German tank production faced fundamental limitations. The Tiger tank, superior individually, required extensive hand-fitting. Germany produced 1,354 Tigers throughout the war. America produced 49,234 Shermans. Numerical superiority overwhelmed qualitative advantages decisively. General Heinz Guderian noted that captured American tanks possessed mechanical reliability and parts interchangeability that German tanks couldn't match. Every Sherman used interchangeable parts, while German tanks required model-specific components. American mass production created maintainable weapon systems that German engineering couldn't replicate. The Rock Island Arsenal demonstrated American production scaling. From 500 rifles monthly in 1940, production reached 5,000 M1 Garand rifles daily by 1943, with women comprising over half the workforce. Women operated multiple milling machines simultaneously, producing components with minimal rejection rates. Their precision exceeded military specifications while maintaining unprecedented production speeds. American soldiers carried semi-automatic M1 Garands, providing superior firepower. German soldiers used bolt-action Mausers, essentially unchanged from World War I. The firepower disparity multiplied through entire armies, giving American soldiers tactical advantages at every engagement. Ammunition production showed similar advantages. The Lake City ammunition plant, staffed predominantly by women, produced 60 million cartridges weekly by 1943, exceeding Germany's monthly production. Aluminum production revealed the resource gap most dramatically. Germany produced 250,000 tons in 1942, straining every available resource. America produced 920,000 tons with continuing expansion. Alcoa facilities in Tennessee, powered by TVA hydroelectric dams, employed women operating electric furnaces, consuming enormous amounts of power. Each furnace produced sufficient aluminum daily for multiple aircraft. German aluminum shortages forced increasing use of steel and wood in aircraft, adding weight and reducing performance. American aircraft used aluminum extensively, improving range, speed, and payload, translating directly into combat superiority. American mass production achieved quality exceeding traditional craftsmanship through statistical quality control developed by Walter Schuhart and W. Edwards Deming. Consistency impossible with individual craftsmanship became routine and reliable. At Pratt & Whitney's Connecticut plant, women inspectors maintained standards exceeding German requirements. Every component underwent multiple inspections, ensuring complete interchangeability. Packard Motor Company, building Rolls-Royce Merlin engines under license, improved British designs through production engineering. American-built engines exceeded specifications while being produced at unprecedented rates. American war production depended on transportation networks moving materials with clockwork precision. Women played crucial roles throughout these networks, from railroad operations to logistics planning. Female railroad workers increased from 4,000 in 1940 to 104,000 by 1944. They operated switchyards, they maintained tracks, they coordinated logistics, moving millions of tons monthly. The Pennsylvania Railroad alone moved more freight daily than Germany's entire rail network. The seamless flow of raw materials into American production facilities created an advantage German factories simply couldn't match. Despite shorter supply lines, German plants sat idle waiting for shipments that never arrived on schedule. Meanwhile, American industry sustained dual success, churning out both weapons of war and consumer goods, while Germany tightened rationing and demanded ever greater sacrifice from its exhausted population. By 1943, Germany had committed 70% of its manufacturing capacity entirely to military production. America achieved superior output while spending less than 40% of its industrial might on weapons. The secret lay in something far more powerful than raw numbers. It was how work actually got done. American factories ran on systematic efficiency that seemed almost mechanical in its precision. Every motion studied, every step refined, every worker's suggestion seriously considered. Women operating new automatic machinery outperformed teams of traditional craftsmen relying on old methods. Scale this advantage across millions of workers, and you begin to see how material differences became decisive. At the Electric Boat Company in Connecticut, women made up 40% of the submarine construction workforce by 1943. They built entire fleet submarines in 180 days, while German U-boats, despite simpler design, took 300 days to complete. Women welders twisted themselves into confined spaces within the hulls, their smaller frames and dexterity accelerating construction in ways larger workers simply couldn't achieve. American submarine output overwhelmed German U-boat production completely. These submarines weren't just more numerous, they were larger, more capable, and better equipped than their German counterparts. Vessels that would devastate Japanese shipping across the Pacific were built by workers who'd never seen a submarine before the war began. Radar and electronics showcased American manufacturing brilliance most starkly. At Raytheon, women assembled complex radar units in quantities Germany couldn't produce in a year. By 1943, American radar production reached thousands of units monthly. German forces possessed limited radar sets for entire sectors, while American ships, aircraft, and ground installations all carried radar systems. Western Electric, employing predominantly women workers, produced 100,000 military radios monthly by 1944. American forces enjoyed communication superiority at every level. From squad radios to strategic command networks, the Holston Ordnance Works employed 40,000 workers, 70% of them women, producing RDX explosives. In 1943 alone, they produced more explosive material than Germany manufactured throughout the entire war. Women handled these dangerous materials with safety procedures exceeding German standards. Their systematic training and rigorous protocols produced better safety records while processing materials German doctrine deemed too hazardous for female workers. Because American ammunition plants produced such abundance, American artillery could fire unlimited barrages. German gunners, by contrast, carefully rationed their shells. Penicillin production revealed another staggering American advantage. In 1942, there was barely enough for 100 treatments. By 1944, production reached sufficient quantities for 100,000 treatments monthly. German soldiers died from infections routinely. American medics performed routine cures. Women at Becton Dickinson and similar facilities produced surgical instruments in quantities ensuring American wounded received treatment that exceeded anything available in German field hospitals. Blood plasma production, organized through the Red Cross with predominantly female workers, saved countless lives. American wounded survived at rates that shattered previous historical records, while German casualties faced constant medical supply shortages. When Japan cut off Southeast Asian rubber supplies, America created synthetic rubber production from nothing. By 1944, facilities operated primarily by women produced 737,000 tons annually, dwarfing Germany's peak output of 110,000 to 120,000 tons. Chemical engineers developed processes that made synthetic rubber superior to natural rubber for certain applications. Innovations were shared industry-wide, multiplying advantages exponentially. German vehicles failed because of inadequate tires, while American vehicles operated continuously. The production difference meant spare tires in the millions versus German tire rationing. The Quartermaster Corps documented American forces as history's best-equipped military. Women in textile mills produced 100 million uniforms, 500 million pairs of socks, and 60 million boots. At parachute facilities, women sewed with precision that literally meant survival. Each parachute required thousands of precise stitches, achieved with minimal rejection rates. German soldiers faced Russian winters in summer uniforms, while Americans received specialized clothing for every climate and condition. Motorola's 14,000 workers, predominantly women, produced the SCR-300, the first FM portable military radio, at 50,000 units monthly by 1944. Every American squad had radios. German companies could barely produce single sets for field distribution. This communications superiority, built by women, provided tactical advantages that compensated for whatever experience differences existed. Bausch and Lomb's 9,000 workers, mostly women, outproduced Germany's entire optical industry combined. They produced binoculars, rangefinders, and bomb sights in unprecedented quantities. American forces had unlimited optical equipment, while German forces treasured individual pieces like priceless artifacts. Spare parts availability transformed vehicle reliability fundamentally. Women at Delco Remy and similar facilities produced components in the millions: spark plugs, batteries, generators, ensuring continuous operation. Every American vehicle carried spares German vehicles desperately lacked. Preventive maintenance became routine practice, while Germans cannibalized damaged vehicles just to keep others running. American fuel production dwarfed German synthetic efforts dramatically. Women at Texas refineries produced 100-octane aviation fuel, providing performance advantages German pilots could scarcely imagine. German pilots operated with inferior fuel when available at all. American pilots trained without fuel constraints, while German training became severely limited. Experience differences originated in refineries where women produced unlimited high-quality fuel. Captured German documents reveal the psychological devastation of facing American material superiority. Soldiers' letters described overwhelming abundance that broke morale before battles began. German propaganda couldn't explain production reality to troops experiencing it firsthand. Every captured position revealed abundance contradicting Nazi ideology. Soldiers stopped believing propaganda after encountering American material reality. Operation Overlord demonstrated production supremacy definitively. The invasion fleets comprised 5,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft, mostly produced in the previous 18 months by workers predominantly women. German defenders faced material superiority, making resistance mathematically impossible. 20 American shells fired for every German shell, 50 American aircraft for every German plane. Courage became irrelevant against overwhelming firepower. American divisions consumed 1,000 tons of supplies daily versus German allocations of 30 tons. While supplying Europe, America simultaneously fought across the Pacific with equal material superiority. Admiral Yamamoto had predicted 6 months before American strength prevailed. He underestimated dramatically. Essex-class carrier production exemplified American capacity. These 27,000-ton vessels were built in 20 months. Japan required 4 years per carrier. America built 24. Japan managed 6 throughout the entire war. Women at Newport News built carriers using assembly methods. Ships requiring individual craftsmanship elsewhere were mass-produced systematically. By 1944, American bomber production enabled thousand-plane raids routinely. The 8th Air Force alone operated more four-engine bombers than Germany produced during the entire war. Women at Boeing, Consolidated, and North American produced 96,318 aircraft in 1944 alone. Germany managed 40,593 despite desperate improvements. Air superiority's arithmetic was manufactured by American women. German intelligence consistently underestimated American production because their framework couldn't conceptualize women as skilled workers. Social assumptions prevented understanding reality. Post-war analysis reveals systematic rejection of accurate reports, with analysts typically reducing figures substantially, believing actual production impossible with female workers involved. Field commanders knew better from direct experience. By late 1944, fuel shortages immobilized German forces, while Americans consumed fuel abundantly. German tanks sat idle. American tanks operated continuously. Aircraft availability determined operational possibilities. Women managed supply chains, moving millions of tons monthly to precise destinations globally. American soldiers consumed 67 pounds of supplies daily versus German allocations of 4 pounds. Systematic production and distribution ensured nothing stopped for shortages. American replacement systems maintained unit strength continuously. Equipment losses were replaced immediately. Personnel losses were filled rapidly. German units degraded progressively, while American units strengthened after each engagement. Units rebuilt immediately after combat, while German formations never recovered strength once depleted. The Battle of the Bulge revealed supply superiority starkly. Despite German surprise, Americans were better equipped than German attackers who'd had months to prepare. American soldiers had complete winter equipment, while Germans improvised desperately. Production planning anticipated needs systematically. American artillery fired concentrated barrages, while German artillery conserved desperately. Ammunition plants staffed predominantly by women produced shells in millions, while Germany managed thousands. Communication equipment abundance enabled coordination impossible for Germans. Women produced military radios, ensuring every unit had multiple sets, while Germans shared individual radios. American wounded survived at extraordinary rates through medical supplies produced abundantly. Plasma, drugs, and surgical supplies were universally available, while German medical services faced constant shortages. America's 2.5-ton trucks, produced at 800,000 units, provided mobility, while German forces relied on deteriorating horse transport. Transport aircraft enabled sustained operations anywhere. Women at Douglas built 10,000 C-47s, transforming military logistics. Surrounded forces received supplies indefinitely, while German encirclements meant surrender. Combat engineers had equipment providing enormous advantages. Bulldozers and excavators produced by women enabled rapid construction, while Germans used hand tools. Signals intelligence succeeded through machines mass-produced by women at NCR and IBM. Thousands of analytical machines multiplied human capability exponentially. Radar coverage was universal through mass production. Detection advantages negated tactical surprise systematically. American soldiers received comfort items regularly: cigarettes, candy, magazines, maintaining morale. German soldiers received nothing for months. Stalin toasted American production at Tehran. Churchill understood from the beginning that American industry would prove decisive. The Studebaker trucks mobilizing Soviet forces, the Liberty ships sustaining Britain, the aircraft equipping Allied air forces, all produced predominantly by American women whose contribution proved absolutely decisive. American war production statistics remain staggering: 296,000 aircraft, 193,000 artillery pieces, 86,000 tanks, 2.6 million machine guns, 6 million tons of aircraft bombs, 434 million tons of steel, 2.6 million military trucks, 50 million tons of ammunition. Women comprised up to 65% of aircraft plant workforces, 40% in certain shipyards, 55% in ammunition plants. Their productivity exceeded every projection. United States Strategic Bombing Survey interviews revealed unanimous German acknowledgement that American production, particularly by women workers, made victory impossible from 1943 onward. Field Marshal Kesselring stated American material superiority made tactics irrelevant. Colonel General Jodl testified Germany lost to industrial capacity, not military defeat. The underestimation of American production capacity, especially women's capabilities, proved the fatal miscalculation. Women who built victory transformed society permanently. Having proven equal capabilities, they refused returning to pre-war limitations. Productivity methods they developed became foundations for post-war prosperity. Their individual contributions, Rose Monroe at Willow Run, thousands at Douglas and Boeing, welders at Richmond shipyards, combined to create the arsenal of democracy. American motivation and methods achieved what German coercion couldn't. Women worked for victory, wages, and pride, achieving productivity through systematic training and continuous improvement that forced labor never approached. Production methods developed by women revolutionized global industry. Breaking complex tasks into masterable steps originated where women proved traditional expertise unnecessary for quality. Their contrast with marginalized German women demonstrated how pragmatism, utilizing all talent, defeated ideology, restricting populations. Mass production achieved quality exceeding craftsmanship through systematic methods. Women produced precision that multiplied combat effectiveness through equipment reliability. German military planners couldn't conceive that democracy would outproduce dictatorship, that women equaled men industrially, that freedom motivated better than coercion. Their blindness to women's capabilities was symptomatic of ideological failures ensuring defeat. They measured American potential by German limitations, dismissing as impossible what became routine. American women proved victory belongs to those utilizing all talents regardless of gender. When German generals dismissed American women workers in 1940, they sealed their defeat. When those women produced more than the entire Axis, ideology confronted devastating reality. The final verdict was delivered by millions of American women who proved freedom mobilizes a power tyranny cannot match. They built victory one component at a time, establishing foundations for the post-war world. Their legacy extends beyond military victory to demonstrating what becomes possible when necessity breaks artificial barriers.